Well, greetings. Glad to be a part of this today, and I hope everyone that is watching this is doing well. And this last weekend was Father's Day, so let me say Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Thank you for all that you do. So today we are in 1 Samuel 21, and we're going to read through 22, verse 5. So let's go to the word. David came to Nob, where Ahimelech was priest. Ahimelech was shaking in fear when he met David. "Why are you alone, and why is no one with you?" he asked. David answered Ahimelech the priest, "The king has given me orders, but he instructed me, don't let anyone know anything about the mission I'm sending you on or about your orders. And as for my troops, I told them to meet me at an undisclosed location. Now, what do you have here with you? Give me 5 loaves of bread or whatever you can find." "I don't have any regular bread on hand," the priest answered David, "just holy bread, but only if your troops have abstained from sexual activity." "Definitely," David answered the priest. "Whenever I go out to war, women are off limits, and that's our standard operating procedure. Even on regular missions, the men's gear is kept holy. That's even more true today with a mission holy along with the gear." So the priest gave David holy bread because there is no other bread except the bread of the presence, which is removed from the Lord's presence and replaced by warm bread as soon as it is taken away. Now, one of Saul's servants was there that day, detained in the Lord's presence. His name was Doeg. He was an Edomite and Saul's head shepherd. David asked Ahimelech, "Do you have a spear or sword on hand?" "I didn't bring my sword or gear with me because the king's mission was urgent." The priest said, "The sword of Goliath, the Philistine you killed in Elah Valley, is here wrapped in a cloth behind a priestly vest. If you want it, take it, because there are no other swords here." David said, "No sword is as good as that one. Give it to me." So David got up and continued running from Saul. He went to Achish, Gath's king. Achish's servant said to him, "Isn't that David, king of the land? He's the one the people sing about in their dances. Saul has killed his thousands, but David has killed his tens of thousands." David took these words very seriously and became very frightened of Achish, Gath's king. So he changed the way he acted with him, pretending to be insane while he was with him. And he scratched marks on the door of the city gates and let spit run down on his chin. "Can't you see he's crazy?" Achish said to his servants. "Why bring him to me? Am I short on insane people that you brought me this person to go crazy right in front of me? Do you really think I'm going to let this man enter into my house?" And then continuing on to chapter 22. David left Gath and escaped to Absalom's fortress. When David's siblings and all his extended family learned of this, they went to join him there. Everyone who was in trouble, in debt, or in desperate circumstances gathered around David, and he became their leader. Approximately 400 men joined him. From there, David went to Mizpah in Moab. He said to the Moabite king, "Please let my father and mother stay with you until I know what God will do to me." So David left his parents and with the Moabite king, and they stayed with him the whole time David was in the fortress. Then the prophet Gad told David, "Don't stay in the fortress any longer. Leave now and go to the land of Judah." So David left and went to the Hereth forest. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So in our previous segments of this, we saw tensions beginning to rise between Saul and David, and Saul and his son Jonathan. And Saul, we see, becomes increasingly jealous of David because he sees that the people love David more than they do him. And 2, Saul noticed that the Lord's Spirit is now upon David. It had left Saul and is now on David. And so he's also jealous of that. And so we see this begin to rise. And so out of that, Saul has tried on different times already to kill David. And so we see David, fearing for his life, decides to go on the run. And now that's where we pick up our story for this week. And at this point, David now is 20 years old. And he knows that, and Saul knows that the kingdom now is being handed over to David. Originally, when David was anointed as the next king of Israel, that was done in secret. Samuel invited Jesse's family because God told him that one of his sons would be the next king. And it turns out it was David. So this was all done in secret because if Saul found out, Samuel said, "Oh, Saul's going to kill me if he knows about this." So this was done in secret. But now the deed is up. Saul knows what is taking place. And Saul doesn't plan to let the kingdom just be handed over to David. And he decides to use his enemies to make that happen. But as we learned, David was successful in everything that he did. The Lord's Spirit was on him. He was successful in all things. And so instead of being killed by the Philistines, David won the victory in each one of those battles at each one of those times. So now Saul plans to take matters into his own hands. And so David now has made his way to Nob, and he goes into the temple where Ahimelech is the priest. And Ahimelech, it says, is shaking with fear because he sees David and he realizes he's all by himself. See, David already had a reputation as a great warrior, and it would be strange for him to be there by himself. And so Ahimelech was probably fearing for his own life. If he didn't, maybe Saul had sent David there to finish the job on him. Because David was part of the king's service. And so Ahimelech knew that something ominous was going to take place. But David reassured his fears, and he says, listen, the reason I'm here alone is because the king sent me on a secret mission. Now we know this wasn't true, but this worked as a good excuse, and it was pretty believable, right? He was on a secret mission, and so he had to leave right away, and he couldn't tell anybody, and it was so urgent he couldn't bring any stuff with him. That's why he was alone. That's why he didn't have anything to eat. He didn't have any gear or anything. Yeah, that seems pretty believable. So him relaxes, and he's like, oh, okay, all right, well, I don't have any regular bread to give you, but I have this holy bread. And so that's why he asked David all these different questions, because he couldn't just give that to anybody. This with bread was reserved for the priests. So what is this holy bread? Well, it's known in other places as the show bread or the bread of presence. And it's actually found in Leviticus 24, 5-9, where it talks about the showbread being brought into the Lord's presence. And so this is what it says. You will take choice flour and bake 12 loaves of flatbread, 2/10 of an ephah for each loaf. You must place them in 2 stacks, 6 in a stack on the pure table before the Lord. Put pure frankincense on each stack as a token portion for the bread. It will be a food gift for the Lord. Aaron will always set it out before the Lord, Sabbath after Sabbath, on behalf of all the Israelites as a permanent covenant. It will belong to Aaron and his sons, and they must eat it in a holy place because it is the most holy part of their share of the Lord's food gifts, a permanent portion. So here we see that this bread was special bread. So every week at the beginning of the Sabbath, they would bake bread, and it would be placed on these racks. So two racks. This bread would be placed on the racks inside the temple, would sit in the Lord's presence for 7 days. And then at the start of the new Sabbath, then the old bread would be taken out and new fresh bread would be placed there. And so that old bread then was consumed by the priests. That was the food and things they were doing them. So when Ahimelech says, well, all I have is this holy bread, that's the bread he was talking about, the stuff that was being replaced. And so he was able to offer that to David. That's why all those strict questions about what was he ceremonially clean and all these other things. And 2, this is actually the first Old Testament reference we see to the Eucharist. So when Jesus says, I'm the bread of life, he's actually referring back to this idea of this showbread, this bread placed in the presence. And the reason it was 12 loaves is because it represented each of the 12 tribes of Israel. And so it was a reminder of that covenant between them and God. And so the bread representing life and reminder of the covenant to them. So David now has gotten something to eat, but he doesn't have a weapon. And so he asks Ahimelech, well, do you have any weapons around here? Well, no. The only thing I have is the sword from Goliath. You remember Goliath, probably the greatest victory you've ever had in military victory, and just happens to be here wrapped in the priestly vest behind this cloth. And so David's like, well, yeah, give it to me. I mean, what a great reminder. So here David's on the run from Saul, fearing for his life. He didn't have time to grab anything. He had to leave in such haste, so he had no food. He's all by himself. He had no weapons. And now what a great reminder that God is with him as he gets back this sword. Remind him of a great victory that God gave him that day. He was able to kill the giant with just a sling and a stone. And so now he gets to carry that around. It's a reminder of that as he goes. And so he has this great testimony then as a victory that God gave him, and know that God is with him. So now David continues on, and he leaves Nob, and now he goes to Gath. And it's weird that he would go to Gath, because Gath is actually a Philistine territory. Well, who's the enemy of the Israelites that we keep hearing about throughout this whole book? It's the Philistines. So he goes to this Philistine territory and he meets with Achish, the king. And after he meets with him, Achish's servants say, "Isn't that David, the one that the people sing all their songs about?" I mean, they recognize him. David, again, has this huge reputation. And so David hears them talking, and now he starts to fear retribution from Achish. Now, this is the first time we ever see that David is actually afraid of someone. Normally, David's so confident, but here he's very afraid. And so, fearing for his life now, David decides that he's going to act crazy. So he scratches at the walls and he lets his spit run down his chin, doing things he would think like it's someone who was insane or crazy would be doing. And Achish sees that and he's like, "Why would I let this man stay with me? Why would I let him into my temple gates? Am I short on crazy people?" And so David's able to escape then and go on his way. And then in chapter 2, we see now that David kind of starts to settle into this new way of life, this being on the run and traveling. He's kind of getting a hang of everything. And as he goes to Moab, then he sends for his family. So his mother and father, his siblings, all of them come and meet him then in Moab. And he makes arrangements for them to stay there because he's not sure what God has in store for him or what the future holds or what the plans are. So his mom and dad seek refuge there in Moab. But another interesting thing happens. All these other people that are displaced seem to join with David. They see David as someone they can rally behind, someone they can join forces with. And so it says that those who are discontented with Saul, those who are in trouble, in debt, or in desperate circumstances, then join in David's reigns. Why would there be people like that? Why would they be discontented with the king or the kingdom or how things are done? Well, if you remember what Samuel told the people when they first wanted a king, told them all the things that kings would do, tried to warn them and saying God should be your king. But they said, no, we want a king to rule over us just like everyone else. So God gave them what they wanted, but he warned them what might take place. And so kings do is like if they're in your area, they're going to take some of your crops. They're going to take your wine. If you got animals, they're going to take your animals. They're going to take your sons and your daughters and use them in the service of the king, fight and pull their chariots and give them swords to fight the battles. That's what kings do. And most of the people at this time were subsistent farmers, meaning that they only had barely enough to survive. And so if you take part of their crops away, what's that going to mean? They're going to be in debt. They're probably going to be homeless. They're going to be starving. They're going to be kicked out of where they're at. They're be displaced because their families are gone or on the run. Yeah, these are all these people. They see David as someone they can rally behind. And so they join his reign. So now David goes from no food, no one to travel with him, no companions, no weapon, to having the best sword he could probably get or acquire. He got food. Now he has 400 people surrounding him, ready to fight at his side. We see that God is with David and God is taking care of David, even when all things seem bad. David is someone that they could rally behind. And so the start of this personal military force then is a group that will serve David now for the remainder of his life. And, I think much in a similar way to how these people rallied behind David, people today are looking for someone to rally around. There are discontented people out there, those who are displaced, discouraged, their lives are disrupted because of this whole COVID thing or other things that have disrupted their lives and broken up their routines. And they're looking for something to rally behind, someone to get behind and join forces with. Well, the church should be that place. The church should be that place where people come together to rally the troops to fight the good fight. That should be the church. We should be the beacon of hope, a light shining in the darkness, and an open door to welcome all those who will enter. Let us be that for our community. Amen. Let us pray. Well, God, I pray that you just help us to be that beacon of hope, that light in the darkness, that rallying cry that goes out. Lord, let that sound strong in our communities, that people can see the church as a place to come and receive all those things that they are missing, receive those needs that need met. Lord, just Lord, that hope that seems to be lost or short supply today, let that be found in you. And let the church be that light of hope, that message that goes out to all those who are looking for those things. And Lord, we lift all these needs up to you as we say the prayer you taught us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Amen. Well, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out our next In Between series. That will follow up from 22:6 and on, and we'll continue in our series. Take care. God bless. Thanks for watching.